moms and dads all over the world who are navigating life in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, meaning they have kids or they have grandkids, they have changing hormones, they have stress and pressures, they have aging joints. So with all these variables on the table, how do we create a health plan that works? How do we create exercise that feels good on the body? How do we stay consistent with it? How do we cut through a lot of the noise and the dogma around nutrition and just like eat healthy, balanced food?
Hello and welcome to the Fusionary Health Podcast. It's me, your host, Dr. Shivani Gupta, and I have a special guest in store for you today, Dr. Anthony Balduzzi. Dr. Anthony is a health and weight loss expert and is the founder of the Fit Father Project and Fit Mother Project, leading health and weight loss programs for busy men and women over 40. Dr. Balduzzi holds dual degrees in nutrition and psychology from the University of Pennsylvania, a doctorate in naturopathic medicine, and is a former national champion bodybuilder. Dr. Balduzzi is most proud of the fact that he's helped over 60,000 families in over 100 countries lose weight and get healthy through his Fit Father and Fit Mother project. So welcome to the podcast, Anthony.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here and to share some of my wisdom about health and making it work as a busy parent and someone who's getting older.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on here. I met you in person this year, a couple months back, and I just loved your energy. And I was like, I love this person. I want to hang out with him more. I want to get to know what you're creating in the world to help us, because in the health and wellness space, so many of us are teaching, do this, do that, implement this, implement that. Recently, I did a live talk here in Boca Raton, Florida, where I am. And one of the women said, I just don't know which trend to follow. I'm being told 100 different things and I can't figure out what to do. And so when we connected offline, we talked about how sometimes when our life or a certain season gets really busy, all of a sudden health habits, our workouts, these things can get thrown out the window. And so will you kick us off with what even led you to doing this work that you do now, before we get into some of those topics around how do we build really consistent habits and systems into our lives?
For sure. We live in such an interesting time with the amount of information that's out there. I'm sure you feel this way too, even as a health practitioner and student and teacher. It's like overwhelming how many possible things you can think about. And I think people get so lost in the details. And what I hope to do in this conversation is distill things down to close to first principles, like fundamental things where if we simplify all the stuff that works, it comes into a couple core buckets of lifestyle and nutrition and mindset and connections and community and these types of things. And I think that can let us feel more peaceful in our hearts and then more motivated to take consistent action. And this segues to my story. I was born in upstate New York to my dad, Peter, and my mom, Linda. I'm the oldest son. I have a younger brother who's 3 years old, younger than me. And we had a typical childhood, outside playing, except one of the key features was I watched my dad basically work himself to the bone. So like so many parents, he wanted to provide. He had a high pressure corporate job doing stuff for the computer leasing industry. And he was working 80 plus hour weeks for years, sleeping in the office. And I saw this toll that took on his health. He was trying to provide for the family, but his own routines and self-care got put on the back burner. And in his mind, this was love, this was sacrifice, this was what he wanted to do to take care of our family. Except one night he fell out of the bed and had a grand mal seizure. I don't know if you've ever seen someone have a grand mal seizure, anyone listening, but it's terrifying to see someone writhing on the floor uncontrollably. And for me, this is my dad, this is my superhero. And to see him look so helpless and not understanding what was going on was terrifying. We take him to the hospital and the doctors do an MRI and a CT, and they find out that he has a very large tumor growing in his brain. And they give him, kind of the classic standard talk. It's like, hey, we're going to need to operate on this immediately. You may not make it. Your life is going to be forever changed. And over the coming years, I saw my dad go through the traditional oncology system. He had multiple brain surgeries, chemotherapy, radiation, and I watched his whole body just wither. And I also watched him still try to fight to be there for the family. And he ended up dying when he was 42 years old, just before my 10th birthday. I was 9 years old. And it cracked me open. I mean, the devastation of losing a parent that young is immense pain.
Yeah.
Is so destabilizing. Deep existential questions, being brought up in a Christian Catholic household, like, God, why? Why is this happening to my family? And then also questions of like this anger that I have inside, like, how do I turn it into something productive? And life kind of hands you these breadcrumbs and blessings. And one of the things that my mom gave me was a pair of my dad's old dumbbells. And so I'd hide them under my bed and I'd pull them out, and then I'd exercise at night, push-ups, curls, squats. I was 10 years old at this time, so I didn't know a ton, but I just knew when I started to move my body, I started to feel stronger. I could take a lot of this, chaos inside of myself and then turn it into something that was constructive. And in my young mind, this was a form of control, positive control, healthy control, that drove me into this passion for getting my body strong so that I wouldn't follow the same fate as my dad. And I rode that momentum for several decades, initially as a high school boy into athletics and personal training. When I was in my late teens, I began competing in bodybuilding and really learning how to like take the body and use nutrition and supplementation and exercise to create a really good physical structure, which is related to health, but not the same thing.
Sure.
You can certainly have a great physique and have poor health. But there is a large crossover, as we're now seeing and understanding now, from body fat and inflammation and gut health and how all this turns to body comp. So I gained these deep skill sets. And at the time I was also at the University of Pennsylvania doing, undergraduate studies in psychology to understand like how this thinking feeling component is so key to how we stay consistent with anything. And I wanted to understand that more while also competing and training. And to make, I guess, the next bit of this a little shorter, I started the Fit Father Project when I was in naturopathic medical school. And I've been running that company for around 10 years with the mission of helping guys like my dad develop simple and sustainable health routines so that they don't have to be overweight. They don't have to have cardiovascular disease. They can get themselves healthy. And I did that for a few years. Thousands of clients with success stories. And then we started Fit Mother Project. And we've had these two amazing communities going for over 10 years now, where we have tens of thousands of moms and dads all over the world who are navigating life in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, meaning they have kids or they have grandkids, they have changing hormones, they have stress and pressures, they have aging joints. So with all these variables on the table, how do we create a health plan that works? How do we create exercise that feels good on the body? How do we stay consistent with it? How do we cut through a lot of the noise and the dogma around nutrition and just like eat healthy, balanced food? That includes, some free meals or cheat meals, but also includes a really strong foundation of anti-inflammatory, healthy nutrition. And so I've distilled down what I've learned. I have a wonderful team of coaches, and we support people through these transformational journeys with a loving human-to-human connection inside our online program, our community, our app, and our live events and retreats.
Nice. I love that you took so much of what you learned along your journey and you kept collecting wisdom. You went to UPenn, you were like, what, it's not just about studying nutrition. What's the psychology piece that we're going to need to integrate here to win at our health and on this journey? And then you went to naturopathic school, and I teach Ayurvedic medicine. So we're in complete alignment there.
Yes, we are.
You're teaching the same thing, just different language, different words to the same type of wisdom, which is nature heals all things. If we can live in alignment, truly all health should be easy because the body knows how to heal itself. We're just trying to put it back into that state. And so I love always talking to anyone who's in that integrative space, because you get it. You get that health doesn't have to be what's trendy and modern. It's actually about what's ancient and simple.
Yes.
And in the program you're talking about, I love that you bring in community, because a lot of the time when I work with clients, if they go off to functional medicine and don't come back into community to kind of build those habits and keep them, you can get any plan and fix your health, but without the lifestyle being consistent, how will you hold those results? They're always going to go out the window. And so will you kind of share with us, when it comes to those first principles concepts and those ideas around nutrition being really simple, not the big complexity that we talk about right now, how do you kind of approach that with your clients and with your communities?
I do want to talk about nutrition, yet I also think there's a step before that
Sure.
I'd love to chat about, and that's connection to inside of yourself about why health matters. I think most of us just kind of, we gloss over this and we don't do the deep introspection, because we're like, I want to look good. I want to lose weight. I want to fit into these clothes. I don't want my joints to hurt. I don't want to have XYZ disease. I saw someone family friendly get. But I think ultimately, when there's so many pressures trying to derail us with our health, the stress, the lifestyle, all these things, like the strength of our connection to our values and the level of understanding we have about how foundational health is to everything we love, this is like our core of resilience that we will necessarily and always come back to. Because as strong as you get, eventually there's going to be a season of your life where something happens and you get derailed. You go on a book tour. You have a parent that dies. Something crazy happens with your kids or with work. Yeah. And so you need this locus of feeling and connection to come back to. So the first thing we do with our program members before we hand them the meal plan is we go through a deep exercise that culminates in what we call the mission statement. It's basically a journaling and introspection exercise that has questions something like this. What are your core values? Like, what do you care about? And Shivani, what are some of yours? Like, just for the sake of playing this game, what would you say core values are if you had to do one of these little worksheets?
Family first, my kids first, my relationships to my family, my mom, my sister, my in-laws. Like, I have such family that's always my first. Health. Do I have longevity? And am I actually reversing and preventing chronic disease, which is always a big focus of mine? Am I creating a sacred home? So a home where everyone can thrive, those who live here and those who come here to be with us. Another big one is, am I creating an impact on this planet? Am I doing good with everything that I create for the world? And then finally, are we all being good stewards of this planet? Are we all doing good for this planet? And then I would add one more. I'm always trying to show my kids that every single action you take has a reverberation. So it's like, it's kindness, but it's also karma. So it's this understanding that all the good you do is what's going to circulate back, and anything negative you do is coming back for you too. Like, understand how much power you have over your destiny when it comes to karma.
Beautiful. So with those in mind, I think the next layer of questioning that I would add here for everyone who's listening and thinking about their own core values as well is, how is your health, or how are your health habits related to each and every one of those? So I know you could elaborate on this probably for a full 60 minutes. What I heard there was, with your kids, like, you want to impart health habits to them so that they're thriving with as much vitality and force to be the full expression of themselves. You want to keep yourself healthy and energetic and be around to both experience joy with them, to guide them, and to steward all of the patients and clients that come to you. You understand that health is not just related to, your food, but also your environment. So health echoes out into a healthy home with proper circadian lighting, with good water and air and loving environment with connections. And so health is now translated into your home sphere, and also to, karma, how, if we go off plan and we eat something that we know in our conscience is not good for us, like, there is a negative ripple consequence of that, certainly in bloating and inflammation and issues, but also in the fact that we're going to be more likely to go into temptation next time those kinds of things happen. We create like a neural groove of unhealthy habits when we engage in those things. So with all that in mind, it's just like really beautiful to connect even deeper to why these things matter. And what it does is, I think it creates like a stronger core and center inside of yourself that creates a certain amount of gravity. So when life stresses and pressures come around, you can fall back into this connection of, oh, this isn't just about my waistline or looking better or being stronger and having more muscle. This is about all of these things. It's about my family. It's about my mission. It's about karma, and really making these decisions around health as holistic and integrated as possible. So for me, like, health is a spiritual practice. Like, it is integrity. Like, I know that my body is made of the elements of nature. Like, the minerals that are in the soil that get soaked up in the plants ultimately become, my bones, and in the cofactors and all these enzymes, right? The sunshine interfacing with my brain is creating all these neurochemicals. The sacred waters that are flowing are making up my blood. And I understand that to be the greatest expression of myself, I must be aligned to nature as much as possible. So from that deep standpoint, do you think I'm that tempted by processed foods? No, not at all. And like, look, things taste good, but I've also burned myself enough that I've had the unhealthy thing that tastes good and just like really sat in the pain of consequence. And I suppose what we're all doing on these health journeys is we're in the dojo of these bodies and we're just iterating and learning, connecting to our core values, acting out in the world, receiving the influences of stresses and pressures, making decisions, some of them very helpful and giving us resilience, some of them just backsliding us. Okay, what did we learn here? And then we carry it forward. So this is a little abstract, but I think it's supremely important. And what we have our members do, particularly in the early part of the program, is solidify this type of journaling down to a mission statement, stating their short-term goal, stating their values, stating why this matters to them, how their health is interconnected to all these things, what they're willing to give up and the cost of this kind of change, and that they're willing to accept it. So it's like a really deep framework in the sense that it involves the limbic system of the brain, these emotional centers. It involves the prefrontal cortex, the planning and logical centers. It takes into account the environment. It takes into account the cost of change and some of the inertia issues that come along with all this stuff. And we start there. And then we can pour that power into something like a nutrition structure. And that's certainly what we can talk about next, because I have a lot of good thoughts on how to make that easier for people. But I want to take a pause here.
You know, what's interesting about what you've said is a lot of times we don't quite have enough motivation to go through the pain of a health journey. And what I mean is, I'll give you an example. 2025 for me was a year of mold. Found too much mold in the house. I'm one of those go-getters. You show me a problem and I'm voracious, and I won at mold for the year. So I have the cleanest air I could possibly have in this house in this moment. And then I will keep fighting that good fight because I live in Florida. So moisture, air is a whole thing. But it was important to me because the children, they live here, and all that's a whole problem into itself. But the detox from mold is a commitment. And it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy. It's like 10 times more supplements than I want to take. It's peptides. It's like a whole plan. Get in the sauna more. It's work. But you're right. If the motivation is just your waistline, it's not enough to compel you to hold on to the result, because holidays will come, celebrations will come. You're going to want to do, I don't know, for me, I was in Texas last week, so Tex-Mex and dessert and all the fun things we did for birthdays. So I love that you start there, because if we can really dig deep into our why and our mission statement of why we're doing this across all levels of our life, across all alignment, it really transcends every aspect of our lives. And thus it becomes irrefutable, which is how I live, because I've watched what happens in my family in my lifetime if I don't focus on health at that level. I know exactly the future that comes for me and my family.
Yes. Completely.
So I love that you brought that up first. And what kind of transformations have you seen there alone with people, where once you put that stake in the ground and you understand to even focus on your health because of your much bigger why, what kind of transformations have you seen?
Well, what's amazing is that any actions that happen from that standpoint are inherently deeper and more powerful. So we have someone who's done this deep transformative work and someone who's not. And they're at the starting line. Now we set them out on the same exact eating plan and exercise routine. So for 30 days, they're going to be training 3 times a week in the morning and eating these particular kind of meals. The person that has done this deep work, when they show up to that next morning breakfast smoothie or that workout or the fasting or the morning walk or something like this, they are imbibing that action with deeper feeling and connection, and creating a stronger neural groove that makes that pattern very likely into the future, and also makes it very meaningful, and also makes it very healing. The other person who has not done this deep work now feels like they're carrying a bag of burden on top of their already busy schedule. And maybe they are a little motivated because there's something on the calendar that they want to look better for, but that superficial motivation gets destroyed with enough pressure. It's just like going to get eroded away, and it feels like more resistance. So I suppose the biggest change in experience that happens is one of activation in energy and alignment versus resentment, resistance, struggle. And if someone's still feeling these feelings of resentment, resistance, and struggle in their health plan, there is a very good chance, one, there's just general too much overload and simplification can be made. And two, there's an invitation to go deeper into connection about what actually matters, why this stuff matters. And what I find is like, if we can get connected to these really, really deep layers, like for you, personal mission, family, spirituality, like these really deep layers, and that's like where the roots of your health start, dang, you have so much power. And that's not to say that we won't like fall off track, right? Health is an iterative game. If we want to be doing this when we're 90, the person who's 90, who's still in the park doing push-ups and, eating healthy food and has vibrancy, they've just gone through more challenges and they've gotten on the horse more times than anyone else. So it's like having that mindset as well is really important. So I guess to answer your question directly, it changes the whole quality of all those actions, and it transforms those actions into something that literally is creating healthier neural grooves and making it easier into the future. And the other side is, if you don't do this and you do fall off track because there's a resistance, frustration, it actually makes it harder. It creates a groove of more inertia until you get to this deep work first.
Sure. That makes total sense. I have a very good friend who studied positive psychology at UPenn.
Yeah.
And then created a program, he's from Houston, around really like the understanding and mindsets we need to have around health. Because nowadays there's so much information. Like there's tons of information. You can chat GPT a question. It'll kick out a meal plan for you. But I find that these ways of collecting information are so empty. And even I myself, when I have a big health project to embark on, like this mold detox is a project, even though I can get a plan from my functional medicine doc, I still sit there and say, you know what? You probably need a health coach who's going to help you adjust your mindset to the level up that you need to have to hold and do this result, because it's a big undertaking. It's not a small thing to create shifts in our health. And that's what I find with most people. They're like, I don't want to change what I eat. I don't want to change. I don't love to work out. I don't love those things. And so when you were at UPenn learning, what were some of those insights around how to shift our mind and our mindset to a more kind of systems-based approach or first principles approach, or a mindset that'll help us on this journey?
Sure. I'll give you one model on that. I think there's a very useful model who was attributed to a researcher named Jonathan Haidt, called The Elephant, the Rider, and the Path. Are you familiar with this model?
No.
Cool. Great. So I want you to picture a small woman on a giant elephant walking down a path in the jungle.
Okay.
And ultimately, like the three aspects here, the path, the elephant, and the rider, all want to be working together to have harmony. Because if the small rider on top wants to go right, an elephant wants to go left, we have problems. Like the elephant is probably going to win, and there's going to be frustration, and maybe the rider actually knows that the right is the proper way to go. And then the path itself has architecture. Is the path bumpy? Are there rocks and stones? Is it smooth? Are there predators, etc.? And what this model shows, as we kind of start to map this to the brain, is ultimately our motivation is deeply driven by emotions, subconscious emotions, our sense of self and identity, our ego structure. This is like the limbic areas of the brain, the amygdala, the areas where the hippocampus, the areas where we have memory, the areas where we store our self-worth. And this is emotion. This is the emotional center of the brain. It's actually in the center of the brain. This is the elephant. A lot of power here. Most people are not tapping into that power and really understanding like the signals. And that's where some of this motivational work is necessary. Now, the rider is the one very up top, needs to have clarity on a simple plan or structure to follow, or all of that emotion and energy cannot be directed anywhere. So this is where you need structure. This is why joining a program, hiring a coach, getting a meal plan, having a printed training routine, having structure to pour that emotion into is necessary. And this is the job of the neocortex and some of the outer layers that have more logical and rational functioning. And then there's the role of the environment, the path itself. Like, how do we make the environment as easy as possible? This is throwing out the junk food in the house. This is getting the workout set up at home. This is joining that gym, getting an accountability partner, having a conversation with your spouse about why this stuff's important, talking to your kids, whatever that is. So these three elements are the basis of effective change. And we want to be doing things in each of these. So for example, what we just talked about was some work on the elephant in the motivational aspect by doing deep reflection. Now we need to empower the rider with a very simple structure. And what I like to think about is winning the day. Like health is all about like creating healthy days, these units of time. And it's so beautiful. You and I are deeply understanding the significance of nature as the basis of all this. We are gifted with this sun cycle that gives us, a waking time and a resting time. And so when we begin to understand this and create units around that, we can create a lot of beautiful structure. So the engagement in the morning, like what is our morning routine? We start there with our members. And very simply, the basis of it, in my opinion, is rehydration and light. So wake up, get some water. We like to remineralize the water with various kinds of salts or functional minerals. And then if you can get a light movement, walking, sunshine, rebounding, even just some basic stretching, like boom, you just activated your body and you're creating some positive momentum. We also help our members create what we call go-to meals. Like I believe that every person either consciously or unconsciously has some kind of meal schedule set up. Like there's something that fits your various days. I have breakfast at 8, lunch at noon, snack at 3, dinner at 6. Like, other people intermittent fast. What I believe and was really helpful for people is in the beginning part of the day to create very, very healthy go-to meals. Like that first meal of the day, get rid of the decision fatigue. It's 2 or 3 options, whatever it is, overnight oats, eggs and avocado, some kind of healthy breakfast protein smoothie, something that's high in protein, fiber, micronutrients, healthy fats, dialed in. And what we're ultimately doing with that is removing choice bias, creating anchors of consistency early in the day that no matter what happened yesterday, we can always re-anchor into, and then it carries and creates this ripple of positive momentum. You can almost think about health as like just constantly shifting and generating momentum. And there's some things we do that backslide, and how do we recreate that? So I'm all about structure, all about go-to timing and understanding like winning the day. And there's a lot more nuance on that we get into the program. The ultimate feeling though is, dang, I wake up, I'm feeling more alive than I have in a long time, more life energy, more positivity. I know exactly what to do in my simplified daily routine to honor and love my body and work on that. And I do my best to get my workouts in. I schedule them on my calendar. I train. And the nice thing about doing workouts that are designed for people over the age of 40 is, they hit all the aspects of training that are safe and time efficient and effective. And this is what we specialize in.
Hi, I'm Dr. Shivani Gupta, and I created Fusionary Formulas because I believe everyone deserves a natural way to support their body's health. If you struggle with joint discomfort or stiffness, our turmeric gold delivers powerful curcumin in a form your body can truly absorb. It's science-backed with the highest quality ingredients and designed to support your body's natural inflammatory response. Take the next step in your health and wellness journey today. Visit fusionaryformulas.com and use code FusionaryHealth for 15% off. Fusionary Formulas, ancient wisdom, modern science, maximum impact. I love the example of the rider, the elephant, and the path. First of all, I love elephants, and I've ridden elephants in India. But it was such a beautiful analogy because oftentimes we give the rider a business plan that's 60 pages long, and the poor rider is like, I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. I have texted my functional medicine doctor multiple times now and said, someone needs to call me. You gave me weird stuff I have to inject, and no one sent me syringes. I just don't know what to do. You need to clarify before I drop really high weird stuff. I know they're peptides. I know what they are, but it's a new frontier. And so my brain is fully confused on when, how, what's the timing? What's the dose? Am I going to do this wrong? Am I going to kill myself? What am I doing here with this project? So all I can execute on is what I am clear on. And I'm clear on what I teach. So I'm always I'm going to do it my way. And you guys are advisors who support this plan. But it's so interesting the way you explained rider. And I think it's part of why, it's only one piece of why, but it is a piece of why we're failing at our health so much nowadays. Another thought process I have is always, why do we have to take 50 supplements? Why is food so low quality that we can't trust our diet to give us what we need? And we're having to take so much on the supplement front. But I love the idea of simplifying the plan, executing that plan, building the neural grooves in the system. So we have such an ingrained habit in our lives, and that becomes the system we live by. And then
Yes.
once that's easy, then you add on top. Then we
Mm-hmm.
can complicate or add new levels and level up if that's how you want to even think of it. But truly, the basics, the foundation is what we need. And we're seeing that in the biohacking longevity space. I go to all the biohacking conferences, and as I walk those halls, I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks cool. And I'm like, nature gives me that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
good. I could go out
Yes.
into my backyard for 5 minutes every morning. It's free and it'll do everything I'm asking all these high tech tools to do. What am I not, why am I not willing to spend more time in nature? And so my new habit is walk in nature twice a day. Simple,
Perfect.
easy. It gets the job
Right.
done. And so I think it's just like you said, coming back to those simple principles, but building the habits and systems so that we're supported to do it.
Well, here's two what I think they're facts. One is there are people living in blue zone countries eating simple natural diets, gardening, sunshine, that are going to outlive 90% of the people at biohacking conferences who are doing fancy devices, working long hours, trying the next hack, taking tons of supplements. So it's like just because we are doing more doesn't mean that we're getting more out of it. The cost of a scientific mindset that we have here is that we've created systems in such scale of looking into things so deeply, finding the next molecule that benefits the mitochondria, looking at the next wavelength of light that benefits, and it all there is a case and argument for almost everything.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
but the effect size is not always massive, and it adds this layer of complication, especially because all these companies spring up to sell these things because there's opportunity and people will buy them because we all care about our health because it's natural to do so. So it adds up to this huge layer of complexity. Our body does need nutrients, and there are foods even today that are still loaded with nutrients. And so to kind of like get back to one of the things that I was sharing on the nutrition front is if we can create a morning go-to meal that is loaded with these true superfoods, foods that are just so loaded with nutrition, like we can rest easy that we get a ton of these things. So for example, let's say that we made a breakfast smoothie, and that breakfast smoothie had a base of whatever kind of milk you like. Let's just say organic almond milk here. We threw some raw cacao powder, which is incredibly beneficial, some wild blueberries, some arugula, some hemp seeds, maybe a couple egg yolks, a protein powder that feels really good. And we could throw a couple other really cool things here, Ayurvedic spices and stuff like this, maybe a little ginger, like, anything. We throw this in here. This thing, and maybe half an avocado, this is loaded with like healthy fats and protein and micronutrients and fiber and polyphenols to the max,
Yeah.
right? In one meal, that if you just get a set recipe that works, you're good. You got something that's so dialed that serves you. And then the rest of the day can be filled in. When you look into the foods that are most nutrient dense, and if you begin to build your life around these foods, we really can relax and take fewer supplements. It is true. And that's a process. And I think becomes actually a little more advanced to simplify. But also thinking in terms of which foods have the most nutrient density. How do I get these into my body? And then, of course, paying attention to which foods actually feel good on my body, whether or not they're healthy on paper, what works for me. Also, a huge fan of ghee as well. I'm sure you talk about this all the time. People should be throwing ghee for the short chain fatty acids for the butyrate in their morning drinks, right? And also another plug for cacao. I think people are going to be drinking a lot more cacao into the future. It's a very, very powerful functional food for energy and a lot of antioxidant capacity too.
Absolutely. I mean, there are wonderful superfoods. I teach a lot about the super spices because I always think of turmeric and ginger and fennel and cardamom and cinnamon. And I love super spices, but I also love superfoods. I incorporate them a lot, the spinach and the blueberries and all these hemp seeds, chia seeds. I mean, we have such a plethora of magic coming out of Mother Nature that is built for such nutrient density, nutrient variety, powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant benefits like you talked about. So I agree with you. It sounds like what you're teaching is win the morning, win the day.
And I think the first two meals, I think depending on how many meals someone has, but what if we made a go-to smoothie and like a go-to salad recipe that had capers and hemp seeds and walnuts and arugula and sardines or chicken or tofu or tempeh, like whatever that is. I am telling people to condense down into these units of structure of like functional tools. Dinner is for variety. It's for family. It's for flux. It's for out with the kids doing things, whatever it is. But like if you can create structure in the early part of the day with go-to meals, not ideally not much snacking, if any, in between those, based around these amazing foods, you have so much structure and consistency. If people have 3 meals a day, many people will listen to this probably fast and have less. But if you knocked two-thirds of those meals, if you made those really healthy and dialed and still had your variety later in the day, your health would transform.
I love that. It's simple. And I think we need that simplicity. I think the problem is nowadays, from what I see online, of course, Facebook and Instagram feed me health content. It's like, if you're not carnivore and fully keto, you're never going to win at insulin resistance. In perimenopause, if you're not eating 1,000,000 grams of protein with a ton more fiber, you're not going to win at perimenopause, menopause. And so, of course, we know the algorithms thrive on scaring the crap out of us. Mm-hmm. But that knowledge just complicates and creates this doubt in the brain around whatever path we choose. Mm-hmm. And then that doubt alone will erode our ability to just stay on that clear path.
Yes, for sure.
And that's an issue.
It is. And I mean, look, like our body does need protein. We do need to have good glycemic regulation. But anything that starts to seem and smell like a religion in terms of a diet, it's like, this is the way, this is the dogma. It's just, it's getting too reductionistic. It has great aspects to it. Like, so for example, I want to quickly comment on these things. Like, I think that we're slightly overblowing the amount of protein that people need. My personal take. I think it's fine for people to aim for 80 to 100 plus grams a day. Like, that's cool. Like, have protein in every meal. If you have 2-3 meals a day and you're getting 30-40 grams of protein each of those servings, fine and easy. I believe that people are not eating enough plant-based proteins. I think there's a ton of benefits to doing those. I actually think like there's so much wisdom from Ayurveda and Indian cooking of incorporating a lot of the lentils and different kinds of beans. And I'm a huge fan of tempeh. I think it's a great source. Anyways, the protein is good to focus on for sure. Get it around your workouts, but I don't think it's something that we need to stress about as much. And then our bodies are meant to be metabolically flexible. And I think using tools, like I'm a huge fan of people using MCT oil, particularly C8 MCT oil, because it literally causes your liver to produce ketones independent of your carbohydrate intake, which is beneficial metabolically. I do believe in fasting and using that in many ways. It doesn't have to be a daily fasting practice, but maybe even once a quarter, a longer fast to get rid of some of the senolytic cells. So there's just so many good tools. But yeah, I mean, you can have carbohydrates. Like you can eat berries. You should eat seasonal fruit, in my opinion. I think it's part of being synced up with nature. You can have a sweet potato post-workout. But if someone wants to be totally keto, like that's cool too. And that's not wrong either. Like, find the system and the groove that works for you. Our plan, generally, because we do give nutrition advice in our meal plan, is a solid protein focus for sure, natural foods focused, and lower carb. But that might be like 100 grams a day, but it's not like keto by any means. And some people have less, but it's just carb controlled is what I'd say.
Nice. It sounds very balanced. It sounds very attainable. It sounds doable, but it also sounds very whole body focused, as opposed to here's the short-term goal, short-term gain. We're only going for this goal or that goal, longevity or our waistline or whatever it is. It sounds like a holistic approach to building the body you want to have, while keeping in mind what true health is, which is all the building blocks of the body. Mm-hmm. That's what we teach in Ayurveda. That's what you're teaching from a naturopathic perspective, is a holistic approach. The body needs vitamins and minerals. It needs variety. It needs nutrient density. It doesn't just need one type of protein and you're shoving it in by the spoonful. Like, everyone right now is on the cottage cheese plan and the how do I get as much protein powder in? And as I watch this, from my viewpoint, it makes no sense.
Me neither.
It is. How do you expect the body to absorb that? How do you expect the body to appreciate and utilize that if you are pushing protein down your throat at the expense of berries, nutrition, fruit, seasonality, even healthy carbs? Like, it doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah, I'm on the same wavelength. And look, it is the beauty of modern medicine is we do know and we can treat individuals and not just make blanket statements. There are some people based on genetics, gut microbiome, that eating cottage cheese could be a very health promoting food. And I promise you, there is a large percentage of people that would experience more inflammation from following that path for sure. And so this is also why we're all on our own unique journeys to learn what works well for our bodies, and to find that subset of sacred foods that ends up being like our allies through life. And then this is like a deeper idea, but I really do think it's true. It's if the goal to stay sane in a crazy busy world is to simplify into the stuff that's really enjoyable, that really is aligned with us. That includes foods, it includes people, it includes how we spend our time. We're simplifying to the stuff that's really meaningful. And when it comes to the foods, like there's a subset of foods they're going to help you thrive. And we're all kind of figuring that out. And that's a process of experimentation. But Shivani, I'm sure you have yours, right?
Yeah.
What are your like top 5 to 10 foods that you know like work really well for you that you will probably eat until your final year of life here?
True. No, it's very true. And I think it's almost like, can you remember to bring sacredness back into health? Can you remember that health too is sacred? It's not just following a trend headlong. It's, can you remember what is your longevity practice with your health and how you're going to build these habits and systems that work for you? And I really love that you do that in community, because oftentimes we're siloed. We're living alone in our own individual homes. People are empty nesters, or maybe, not partnered anymore, whatever the issues are. But it's hard to self-motivate alone. I meet a lot of ladies who are in their 60s, 70s who are like, I live alone. I don't want to cook. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, well, I got to get you cooking some spices here and some foods. We got to bring in some freshness. We can't just buy old food or eat leftovers all the time. And so I love that you bring a community together, because every time I've done something in community, that's where we build these habits that stick with us. And also we bring the joy to the process as well.
You're so right. And here's where our Fit Mother and Fit Father communities thrive. Like every week inside the app, we drop a full new weeks of workouts. So it's like today, we're recording this on a Tuesday. It was published on Sunday, and all the weeks ahead, they're laid out on days. They're follow along workouts. We're training with me and a couple members of my team. We film them in such a way that they're just like, they feel like live. And then you have the app where everyone's posting and doing the workouts together every week. Just did lower body strength training, and you see, all the comments, and just really amazing to use structures that we have, like communities and internet and online, to engage with movement. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, when it comes to doing things together, it's about having friends you can check in with, but it's really about moving our bodies. Like, we're humans, we're embodied. Like, we dance together, we hike together, we walk together, like we create together. So it's like, I think that movement component is where community really thrives, at least what I see. And so if someone's looking to deepen their movement practice, like, find some people to do it with. That's the best way to stay motivated.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything about the program we didn't talk about yet? Because I'm really excited about it. I'm like, I want to do this. I want to sign up. I want to be part of it. We all go through seasons with our health where sometimes it's harder than others, myself included. And the mold project threw me off base by a lot. And then the book tour happened right alongside. So it's like, okay, well, when life gets real busy and all your free time is being sucked into other things, where does your health fit in? For me, I have enough non-negotiables I can stay healthy.
Yes.
But just because I know how to stay healthy doesn't mean I'm actually thriving at that ultimate level of health that I crave and love, where I feel my best and I look my best and everything's like on point. And so whenever I can feel that decline, I can feel when that decline's happening. I'm like, well, what's coming, and where are you going to make the space to lift back up and get back to that state? So is there anything else about the Fit Father or Fit Mother project that we haven't shared about today?
Well, I think what you just discussed was beautiful. You just described a season in a period of your life recently where you had a very particular health challenge with a lot of taxing to your bandwidth with this big book project. And you were so conscious about it, where one, because you're so deep in your health, you're not just like going to McDonald's, you're falling back into your core healthy eating routines. Maybe exercise is what falls off, because when you have lower time, you're not making as much time for that. Okay. But like, what a learning and beautiful process to do that. And then you're feeling that internal tug to like create space to realign. This is the dance. This is the dance. I guarantee this is not going to be the last time you have a similar flow like that. And now you have a space coming up where, whether it's New Year's or post book launch, you have space to really create that. So for everyone listening, we as humans run on these calendars, right? We talked about the 24-hour sun calendar more or less, but we have the yearly calendar as well. There's seasons of our years, there's times, and it's always okay to like recommit, and also to recognize if you're in a season right now that's like a little less training focused, and then you can create space and move into that. And what I love about our communities and what you asked me is like what we haven't talked about is we help people navigate every year, every season, every opportunity to rehook and recommit, honoring the times when we're not able to go 100% on, our ultimate health and thriving, but also having grace with ourselves when we're in these tough periods. Like that's a huge benefit of being around a community of people who get it. We're all living life full out. And so I honor you and myself too. I'm in a similar season, and it's a beautiful opportunity to recommit. So I guess if anyone's listening to this and feels that kind of tug too, maybe it's not your time yet, and you can just honor yourself and be thankful that you're holding so much and appreciating yourself for holding so much right now. And then also maintaining that hope for the time when you can create some more space to take care of yourself optimally.
I love that. Thank you for that. I feel like we all go through, like you said, those seasons, and I know my Ayurvedic constitution. And so I fully recognize when I'm in that ebb and flow season, and I plan my year accordingly. I'm very clear. Like I know my off seasons that I specifically take so I can recalibrate.
Nice.
And then my on seasons. And so, yeah, I think it's so important that we honor where we're at in the process and then build for that. So thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today, Dr. Anthony. Will you share any final message that you have for our listener today? And then will you also share where they can find you?
Definitely. If people are interested in learning more about the programs and communities, you can go to fitmother.com or fitfather.com if you have a special man in your life that you would love to get interested in health and fitness. On those websites, we have links to our program, free resources, our live events. We do conferences and retreats, and so many ways to get involved with all of our amazing, nourishing information and support that we have there. And I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be able to share this, to know you, Shivani, to also feel and see myself in you. Like the same desire I have to help and teach and heal, like is coming through you. And when you recognize that, like the same light that you feel within in yourself when you're is most clean and best, you see it in other people. Like we're all in this together, and privileged to share. I hope someone receives something deep about this, and I'd love for them to check out fitmother.com and learn more.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all this today. Same goes for you. When I meet someone who holds that light of we have so much possibility, we have so much opportunity to create and design the life in front of us, however we can see it. So to me, everything in my existence is co-created and self-created. Mm-hmm. So that's what I love to impart is we have that power each and every day, and we can win every single day, like you said earlier.
Amen.
So thank you for joining today. Thank you for everyone who listened in on the podcast. This is the Fusionary Health Podcast. It's me, your host, Dr. Shivani. And the website to learn more about this is drshivani.com. And if you have any questions or comments, definitely reach out to us with them. Leave a 5-star review. If you're watching the YouTube, please comment. And we'd love to get this wisdom out to more people in your life. So share it with someone who can benefit from the incredible wisdom that Dr. Anthony shared today. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for joining me for this episode. Check out our sponsor, Fusionary Formulas, the potent turmeric supplement used by doctors around the U.S. for patients with pain and inflammation. www.fusionaryformulas.com. I'm your host, Dr. Shivani Gupta. For more, visit shivanigupta.com. Subscribe to this podcast in Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Click the follow button or subscribe in any of the apps that you use. That's all I've got for you on the Fusionary Health Podcast this week. You have the power to transform your health and achieve vibrant health starting today.